Well, good morning, all of you. My name is Gregory Broberg, and I'm a professor in the School of Social Transformation. While my primary responsibilities surround teaching, I'm also passionate about research in terms of supporting K-12 schools. With me is one of my graduate student colleagues from the Computer Science Engineering program, Varun Kesana. Varun, do you want to introduce yourself?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Varun, and currently I'm pursuing my master's degree at computer science. And I'm working with Greg from May, and we are looking forward to share our experience.
So before we begin, we want to thank the conference organizers for allowing us a little time to chat about the work we are doing. We also want to thank Erin for her assistance in getting everything organized for this particular space. And finally, we want to thank Rachel for guiding our presentation today. In the short time we have today, we're planning to discuss with you the stories that we have seen and been told as it relates to community data and my faculty-driven project that is expected to support a major concern within the K-12 educational field, and that is underachievement. We've designed this presentation to last about 15 to 20 minutes to ensure that we have sufficient time to answer any of your questions. And our goal is to talk to you about three particular items. First, we want to address the specifics of what we've learned about data from our K-12 school partners. This information is a result of numerous meetings, research efforts, and school personnel interviews. Second, we want to give you an overview of our school field faculty-driven project. This will include a high-level overview of our mission to use school data in new and innovative ways to solve a serious problem within the K-12 field, which we mentioned is underachievement. We also want to discuss with you the ways in which we utilize enterprise technology here at ASU as part of the work that we're completing. And lastly, we want to lay out a plan to move forward. This includes ways in which the ASU community can engage with us as we move our development efforts into a production mode. For the past 2 years, I've been engaged with a number of Arizona school districts. As part of these interactions, I specifically interviewed teachers, principals, and administration officials about topics such as equity, achievement, and general struggles in the work they're doing. Many of these interviews took place over the pandemic. However, the stories they shared are still alive and well. I want you to listen to some of the responses. As you listen to these, I want you to think about how these stories have implications for data within schools. You may also consider the ways in which these responses echo much of what may be happening with ASU faculty. From one respondent, measuring how kids are doing is really tough. We struggle just to find out which kids should be assigned to particular groups so they get what they need. We focus a lot on test scores, which is not at all about equity. The tools we have just give data, no support to identify things that are really needed. Another principal told us, we measure equity around various demographics and we use STEM tools for teachers. However, we really do not measure the effectiveness of these things as they relate to an individual student. Even our project-based learning activities have rubrics, but the data is not captured. There's also no real measurement between intervention and the actual measurement itself. A third respondent, when it comes to measuring student achievement, for me, it's all about test scores and grades. I typically have too many students who are in different places, and therefore I typically follow up only on grading related issues. In addition to these interview responses, you can see the other evidence we uncovered while working with different schools. We found that data is highly siloed. So attendance data, behavior data, achievement data, all in separate places, and very seldom are those brought together. We also found that it's very dirty. And by that, we mean dates may not relate to what they really relate to, which is it may not be when something is actually happening. It could have happened a week beforehand. Sometimes dates aren't entered. Sometimes required information may be required, but may have just been input for the sake of requiring it. Large amounts of data are anecdotal. We found this when we talked with teachers. They would tell us, oh, I collect this, this, and this, and we'd ask them, well, where does it go? Well, it doesn't go anywhere. How does it relate to what your colleagues are doing? Well, it really doesn't relate to the same thing my colleagues are doing. Most of the users don't fully understand the data they have. They have so much data to work with at the student level that they cannot keep up with it. And when you ask them, well, what are you going to do with it moving forward? They're usually like, you know what? We don't have time to worry about that. What we're doing is we're worrying about the instruction we have to do for students. Time plays a significant role in data decision-making. If it requires a large amount of time, you're looking for some other way to do it, which may not be the best practice in terms of a data aspect. Buying something is valued over building capacity. Most school districts will want to buy something that they think will give them a short-term solution rather than looking to their faculty or their teaching professionals with which to either get input about a particular answer or make a decision about what data would be valuable. And the solutions do little to build the human resource capacity of schools. As part of our research and work I was doing with schools that related directly with data, it became evident to me that teachers and principals had little time, resources, or knowledge to respond to students who were not being successful in school. Here's some of the specific evidence that I noticed and that school administrators and leaders discussed. An obsession with test scores. This obsession came at a cost. In some cases, students who were failing were simply branded as underachievers with no hope to recover. I observed students discussing grades with teachers, and in some cases, the students seemed happy to be failing. Some researchers blame this on deficit thinking and the model that surrounds it. Another issue, when students had behavior issues, school leaders did not have any unified decision-making processes. Without consistent decision-making, parents would move students from one school to another, seeking to find a place that was either more lenient or that the administrator would listen to them. In some schools, it was clear that there was an overrepresentation of minority students involved in discipline issues. However, the school district's tracking methods did not identify them. Finally, students who had multiple problems, attendance, behavior, and low grades, were talked about as simply problem kids. The lack of overall understanding of how multiple issues impacted a student were often not considered. This led to putting out fires. One day, a student would be talked about in terms of their behavior, the next day about attendance, and then the final later one about grades. In many cases, this simply led teachers to prioritize which fire was going to be put out on that particular day. In each of these above stories, data was at the heart of either adding context to a situation or could be used to help devise a student-centered solution, or could be guiding more consistent practices and policymaking between schools. You can see here that as we move forward, we were considering these items as the most important. We wanted to incorporate the current research to the ongoing data issues that were within K-12 schools. In other words, we wanted to help them see underachievement as risk, not failure. And we wanted to shift data to a relational structure, eliminating silos. We wanted to provide a solution that values the human resources within schools. And we wanted to demonstrate the power of our student body and ASU's enterprise technology. This led me to move forward with a faculty-driven project that we call School Fuel. The value proposition of School Fuel is simple: turn underachieving students into achievers. School Fuel brings siloed data and individualized tracking together. Our proprietary algorithms and models analyze underachievement risk and then provide personalized student notifications. It's like having a team of researchers, statisticians, and policy experts at your disposal. Teachers and principals receive simple to read email notifications with everything described in words, not busy dashboards. Our targeted recommendations, something we call nudges, are research-based interventions designed in collaboration with industry content experts. We also provide principals and teachers with research-based videos and articles so that if they don't know a particular strategy, they can learn about it. Our nudges ensure that even the busiest teacher or principal can meet the needs of all underachieving students. Right now, my colleague Varun is going to give you an overview of the technology specifics that are part of the School Fuel platform. Varun?
Hello, everyone. So I'll be giving a brief overview of our technology stack that we are using to build this solution. So mainly we are using two of the enterprise level technology solutions that are Microsoft and AWS. So coming to the Microsoft part, we are using majorly we are using two products that are Power Automate and Actionable Messages. So mainly Power Automate we use for orchestrating the process flows, and we also have a designated SharePoint space where our customers can upload the data. So we use this Power Automate flow to extract the data from the SharePoint and push it to the S3 bucket using the AWS transfer family. We also generate emails and notifications that we need to send to the teachers using the Power Automate part. So in these emails, we contain nudges and the teachers can like or dislike. This email contains all the required recommendation, also required detailed information of the students. So the teachers are also enabled to like or dislike these recommendations and also give us some feedback regarding these recommendations. So mainly we achieve this interactability in emails using actionable messaging. And the other advantage of using the actionable message is when you want to give a feedback, it won't take us to the new window. It just when you click on a button, it just open the text box in the mail itself, and you can enter the required feedback there. So the third flow is we also have a third flow using a Power Automate that creates an endpoint which helps us to receive this actionable message feedback there. So once we receive that feedback, we store it and we use it for further processing that can help us to improve our recommendations to the teachers and improve the recommendations. So this is Microsoft products that we are using. And coming to the AWS, it contains our core functionality. All the storage and the processing is present in AWS. So mainly we just restrict ourselves using the serverless services because it is easy to manage, and also it's very cost efficient compared to using the services like EC2 servers. And so mainly we for storage we are using Aurora DB serverless version 1, and for computing we are using Lambda. And to orchestrate all these processes, we are using step functions that helps us to trigger Lambda whenever whenever we get all the required data from the school for the process to start. And we also use step function to create the transfer family servers and also delete them. So in a certain day, we are keeping a window like 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. to on the servers, so that we receive the data from our the first Power Automate process. So we trigger the Power Automate and transfer family at the same time, and we push the data to S3. So these are the tech stack. And also coming to the stack creation part, cloud formation stack. So when a new customer is added into our school field project, so what we do is we created an Python script, and also we created cloud formation template to just create the entire required stack for a customer with just one click. We just need to input the entity ID of the school, and we get all the required AWS stack created in our account. So that is one of the services we are using. And one of the challenge we face in this using AWS services is the costing, like how to bill the customers. And so for that, currently we are using tags. And even while using tags, the billing the transfer family is one of the challenge, because in transfer family we are creating one server, and that server has multiple users, like each user represents a customer. So and the transfer family is built for the entire server. So we came up with a few solutions that we will be working on in the future. That is, like, we can use a CloudWatch metrics to calculate the time and the amount each customer is pushing into our S3 bucket using transfer family. And based on that, we can, based on the metrics, we can calculate the cost. So that is one of the challenge, and that is one of the part that we are working on. And yeah, so this is a brief overview of the technology stack we are using, and I'll give back stage to Greg.
So that was a lot of information in a small period of time, and now we kind of want to tell you how we're moving forward. So we're committed to solving these data problems in schools, and you know a little bit more about the kind of faculty-driven project that we're working on. And we just want to remind everyone that our goal with this is really to meet a key part of the ASU charter. And if you remember at the end, it says that our job is to assume fundamental responsibility for the economic, social, cultural, and overall health of the communities that we serve. And so meeting these goals as part of the ASU charter is important, but we want to go further. We are hoping that many of you will reach out and join our mission to support our efforts with K-12 schools, both in Arizona and throughout the United States. Here's 3 things that we're hoping that we can all work towards, and that is joining the Edson Institute and Enterprise Technology to rally around this kind of incubator approach to faculty-driven projects that especially are focused on socially minded or social entrepreneurship. We also want to value the capacity of ASU's enterprise technologies in designing model approaches to carry out community-based work. Right now, we don't really have such a model. We typically just use an individual research type of approach. We also want to embrace the academic enterprise in a concerted effort to connect students into the real-life data needs of communities. So we, as we kind of go through and wrap up this piece, we'd be remiss if we didn't acknowledge all the folks that have helped us already. And as you can see from this slide, our small effort has us interfacing with a number of individuals here, both in the enterprise technology part of things, ASU outside vendors, and of course, our ASU student population. We want as many of you to help us spread our mission as we possibly can. We see the key value of our K-12 educational field as instrumental both in bringing students to us and then us helping them solve real world solutions in the work that they do. So now we can answer any questions that you guys have. Yeah, go ahead.
So under architecture, I saw how you're getting your data in, how you're sending your messaging out. What are you using for all that processing, for the model development, for the model deployment?
So currently for processing, we are using the Lambda function. So deploy code, currently we are zipping the code and placing it in S3. And whenever we need to create all the stack for a new customer, right? We have cloud formations template created, and we also written a Python script so that we could trigger the cloud formation template. And when we run the cloud formation template, Lambda gets created and it automatically pulls the scripts from the S3. And we can run everything. And also it creates all the triggers required.
Yeah, and I think to go a step further, sorry about that, is our risk model is basically coded through Lambda interfacing into the combined databases that we built that unsilo the data that gets from schools. So we build the model in conjunction really with the customer. So the goal is, rather than build, we certainly will have a standard kind of model of risk. But we also know that school districts are completely different throughout the valley. So some schools, and we actually allow a district to differentiate at a school level. So in some cases, underachievement risk will look differently in a more higher performing school than it does a lower performing school. And that's valuable in meeting the needs of the individual students that are not being done today. So does that kind of help a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Other questions you guys have? Yeah. Actually, Tucson Unified School District is one of our 19 focal districts because they actually receive targeted funding to solve underachievement over and above what the state allocates for a typical per student basis. So yes, we will be there. We've targeted these 19 districts primarily because they receive this extra funding. There's kind of this myth that schools don't have a lot of money, and that's actually a myth. They do have money. It's how they spend it that makes a difference. And so 19 of these districts throughout the state of Arizona have targeted funds. We're going to them first, and then we'll move into others. We hope to offset part of that expense for school districts by getting grants through the power that ASU has, and then we can supplement some of the expenses coming from a school district through that type of funding mechanism. So,
I'm just curious, as far as response, perhaps, teaching, I had a lot of colleagues at the time who really could barely use the spreadsheet. But what kind of response have you seen, or do you kind of foresee, at least on teachers?
So from our standpoint, what we heard from our interviews and what we kind of designed our solution around, we use a one sole method to communicate, and that is teachers receive a formatted email message that basically has all the information on a per student basis. So there's no external system that they have to go through. There's nothing that they have to interface with other than the email messages in front of them. It's all narrative driven because teachers also, as you mentioned, you kind of alluded to, teachers are not data scientists. Many of them struggle with just, if you even ask them, well, what's this average score mean? They're going to struggle to try to get that. So we distill it to a narrative science approach. It's a great question. Other questions? Yeah.
Hi, I'm Ian Dowdy with the Center for the Future of Arizona.
Hi, Ian.
One of the things we do is we manage the Arizona Education Progress Meter, which is really designed around educational outcomes that 7 key points along the way, including third grade reading scores, 8th grade math scores, college, high school graduation, college going. And we have some programs like Pathways to Prosperity and the Beat the Odds School Leadership Academy, which are designed to help improve certain outcomes. We work with partners like Education Forward Arizona, which is another NGO who works in this space. What I'm curious to know is, to what extent can you track your interventions, your providing data, your silo busting activities to outcomes that might be measured in the educational progress meter? And then also, how can we provide at CFA a feedback loop to you, which might help to sort of prioritize where to invest resources, where to engage? Maybe this is a longer conversation, but we're really interested, I think, broadly in how do we get sort of interventions in the schools where they need to be so that we can see those ultimate outcomes at the benchmark level.
So one of the key aspects that we incorporated that was a big initiative that you guys have put out is the personalized learning approach.
Right.
And so through our structure, we can actually track the new requirements that were put into the legislature. So 2 years ago, where we can actually tell a district, okay, if you're implementing this model at a school, we can actually comply with the state regulation of time on particular tasks, et cetera. So we've already built that into our process. So we can actually extend far beyond just the underachievement part by helping them kind of implement these models that you guys have already kind of paved the way for. And especially in that personalized learning area, because that's really the key to getting to an individualized attention type of approach. So, and yes, I'd love to talk to you about it. I always keep up with Sybil's work.
Oh, great.
So
Well, I'll
yes.
give you a card. I'm the data guy. So,
Perfect.
yeah.
We can definitely combine together. And that's the whole mission of this, is to how do we bring people together? And you guys are always tied to ASU for many different things. So we can certainly find a space for you, and we can help you kind of move things forward, which is desperately needed right now in Arizona. So,
Great. Thank you.
yep. Other questions? I think Rachel, how are we doing time wise?
You've got about 5 minutes.
Oh my gosh, we actually are ahead of time. Yes, go ahead, and then I'll take.
Without getting too much financial, where is it? So is this like a self-sustaining? Is this created or is this more of a model?
It's a service platform. So the cost structure and the revenue structure are kind of tied together, which is, the overall revenue structure is built around kind of a per student cost, if you just think about it that way. And so that everyone has to win out in the end of it. And so what we built is a capability to provide a lower cost solution that is scalable, that is also customizable to many extents. So for example, the risk model is completely customizable at a school by school basis. You can imagine that there's some difficulties to that, but for the most part, we have a kind of the model that we've kind of built looks at the key factors that generate underachievement risk. And so the good news is we risk score every student. We focus the intervention on the underachieving students, but we also know that there's a large number of highly achieving students who eventually underachieve. So the bottom line is you catch as many students in this net, depending upon what the district sees as their underachievement. And again, that could be highly achieving students that are now underachieving, those type of situations. So overall cost-wise, the service itself runs, I would say, quite well in the fact that the products that are being utilized are, we're solely Python-based. We're using only Microsoft and AWS solutions. We only use those solutions that are easily implementable and can be customizable. So we've attempted to implement a very cost-based strategy. Varun mentioned the tagging function in AWS. That's what allows us to be able to go back to customer and say, okay, these are the real costs. This is, so we can manage that on a year-to-year maintenance agreement without a problem. So those are the things that we've done to kind of consider the cost revenue structure. And I don't know if that answered all your questions at this point in time. Okay. We track basically what we do is we track if you just think about it as a category within the levels of risk, we track individual statistics on each part of the model so that you can literally go to a category and then look at the scale within it. There's a complicated process that we go through because when we recommend, so for example, most customers will send us data monthly because you're not going to sending data weekly to analyze underachievement is kind of a misnomer. Many of the districts love to, they say, oh, we do this daily. And I'm like, that's not the way underachievement works, but you can, they get this obsession factor going. And so if they send us data monthly, we have to make sure that when we're giving out notifications to teachers, we throttle how many notifications the teacher gets. Based on their experience level. We also look and see, did we send the same message last month? Is there an improvement? Is there not an improvement? So all of those things fall out. So that's how we keep kind of track of the individual items. So we literally have all the data points covered and we can go back and track everything that we need to. So a wealth of data available. And that's one of the things that we've kind of built is this continuous improvement model, both with the district and schools and what we're doing.
And your question on Zoom going off of that was, so is the data that you collect, is that publicly available?
It is not publicly available. It is not considered, it is an anonymous data from the standpoint that when we get it, it's still at a student level, but we attempt to pull out anything that identifies back to a particular student. But we have to keep some level of peace in order to do it. But yes, not publicly available. Anything else that anyone has?
Still got it
Yeah,
back?
so do you have data sharing agreements with each school then?
Every
So that
district.
defines, every district, so that defines the parameters that the data will have, and you have certain agreements, probably, maybe even do not disclose type of agreement.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we would not, any of the data that we keep or that we have is all agreed to by the district. And in most cases, the district wants us to be able to share at least some of the information to improve the model development that's going on. So that's the nice thing about being a research one institution, that kind of agreement is implied that we know how to handle data like that because we're a research one institution. So it makes it a lot easier than if we were a third party company asking for that information. So is that it?
I think that's time.
Thanks you guys so much.